what we saw last week is that it seems very strong and consistent through the Torah. From the Gaon brings it down also in his letter that the Chachamim were against a person investing energy in their life to build up financial resources for their children. That's not the way a person should allocate the life that was blessed to them by God. And you should utilize your time on this earth to use all the resources and abilities that God gave you to make your unique spiritual imprint in God's world. And to waste your life away working to build up resources for your children is, first of all, the Torah says, is pointless, because every child has its own hashgacha from Hashem. Hashem will look after him financially. If you're destined to poverty, they'll be poor despite your gifts. And if you're destined to be wealthy, they'll be wealthy despite the money you left behind for them. And other Meforshim say, who knows what they're going to do with the money, if they'll even be responsible with the money. So there's no benefit in it. And practically, I think emotionally, in a whole different host of things, the significant amount of money which you're dreaming of leaving for your children will probably only create problems for them. So the Torah is against a person spending their life to set their children up. That being said, there's very clear guidelines for how a person bequeaths their money after death to their family. So as a life goal, the Torah doesn't promote it, but on death, Hashem does have very clear guidelines how a person's assets should be recorded and how they should be distributed. And today I want to share with you that. Just a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's like the loser's will, you know. If there's a lot to give away at that time, I'd say you didn't do too great in your lifetime. Hashem wants you to deploy your resources while you're here. Use them, spend them, make a difference in His world. What's left behind? There's rules. Who gets it and how it goes down into the rest of the family. But ultimately put them in your hands at a time when the world needed those resources in your hands. And it's our responsibility to proactively deploy those resources. But today we're going to speak about what happens at the end of life. Okay? To start off with, I've just none of the stuff I knew in depth. I just prepared really for the Shurim. Quite shocking for me, actually, the way the Torah starts off delineating a person's heirs and how you leave your money. And it shocked me because it went against my own emotional desires. I always trust the Torah and settle with that, but I had to digest it to try and understand what's going on. And with time, I actually saw the tremendous chokhmah of the Torah in this, and we'll see it together, but quite profound. First of all, let's just get the basics of what most people know from the Torah, how you allocate your money after dying to your heirs. The Torah says as follows, that first of all, like this, a father bequeaths his assets firstly to sons. So if you have sons, the sons take all the assets and the daughters don't get any. That's how the assets are distributed. If you have no sons, then your assets are divided equally amongst your daughters. Okay? If you have no daughters, then it goes to brothers, uncles, and you move up. A wife, according to Torah law, gets her, this for me is like was hard, but gets her ksuva, so whatever's written to her in a marriage document, and life, monthly, what would we call it now, maintenance, until she remarries. Out of the estate, that would come first, so she gets her ksuva and life sustenance until she remarries and finds another person, and then the rest gets split amongst the children. Now that's that part was quite hard for me to swallow. Like you think, like the first thing you want to just make sure like you look after your wife. But if you think about it carefully, I'm not giving anybody advice here. No one should put their wills together based on what I'm telling you. But if you have a lot of money to leave and you would leave it all to your wife, which is what all the tax advisors will tell you, she's going to be in for tzoros. I'm not saying you shouldn't or you should, but it ain't an easy thing that. Because first of all, she may never want to get married again, which for her might be great, but it will be a very lonely life. She'll never know if the people who want to marry her for the money that was left behind are actually for her. She's going to have the responsibility of then reallocating the money out to all your children, which for you is going to be a massive burden in your own life. How to work that out now, just dumping that onto your wife. So all the very good tax advisors are giving you very bad advice if you really care for and love your wife. Torah says the best way to look after your wife is to give her the ksuva that you signed when you got married and look after her living expenses until she gets remarried. Whether you do that or not, I'll leave that in your own hands, but just to let it sit. That there's a great wisdom in that. And if everybody did that, and that was the expectation, it would lead to a remarriage, please God, and a continued happy life after you left this world, and actually what you really would want for your wife. Okay, that's how it starts off. Okay, everybody happy with that? Now, Now we're going to discuss what goes on practically. Now, so the starting point, everyone got the starting halachas are pretty simple. The pasuk everybody knows that by ben Sorah Moire, the Torah says that a person marries two wives, and he prefers the firstborn of the second wife, not the firstborn of the first wife. The Torah says you're not allowed to change the allocation of your assets in your will. You can't say you want your money to go to the favorite son of the second wife. You have to keep it the way it's supposed to be allocated. The double portion will go to the son of the first wife who you despise, who could become a ben Sorah Moira, that you don't want, and you just keep the way the Torah wants you to give it. Okay? The Shulchan Aruch brings down, there's a machlokas in the Gemara, if you have a child that's really wayward, that's not good, can you divert your inheritance away from that child? And the Shulchan Aruch paskins that you can't. It says as follows: anybody who gives his assets to other people and denies his heirs, his halachic heirs, even though his heirs don't behave properly. So the reason why he's diverted his assets is because his heirs are Mechalel Shabbos, that whatever it is that causes a father unhappiness with their children, disrespectful, don't do things well. If you move your assets and give them to somebody else other than your heirs, even if they don't behave properly, sages get no nachas from that person's behavior. But you should know the other people, it works. You can move your assets. Practically, they get it. Whatever he gives them, they get. Good. Midas Chasidus, and he says it's a righteous thing. You shouldn't even be a witness on somebody's will if that will's function is to move assets away from heirs, even if it's moving from a terrible heir, a Rasha, to a son who's a Talmud Chochem, an unbelievable person, you shouldn't be party to the moving of those assets away from the heir. That's the Shulchan Aruch. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins, like the Chachamim in that, it's a Mishnah, that you don't move. You don't decide based on the behavior of the children to move the assets away from them in their lifetime after you've died. And it would work if you did it. It works, but it's frowned upon by the sages to do such a thing. And a person shouldn't be party to somebody else's will who's trying to do that. And the Ramah adds, Mi shetziva lasos b'nechosav hatoiv she'ef shelasos. If a person writes in his will one line, he says, I want the trustees of my estate to do the best thing you could possibly do with my possessions. That's it. That's what he writes. What would you do? Why do they carry that out? Hitnayu leYoshav. You give it to his heirs. Ki ein toiv mizeh. There's nothing better than that. Nothing better than a person's assets going to the rightful heirs. Who they are, what they are, how they behave, that leave in Hashem's cheshbon. That's the way the Shulchan Aruch paskins. Okay? Don't leave now. Okay? But that's the baseline, and that's really how the Torah delineates a person to leave their assets. What we need to discuss is 3 or 4 very important practical points. Okay? The first is that we learned together that the Ramah himself said that before a person dies, the limitation of giving 20% to charity gets lifted from a person, because that was a worry, you'd need the money. Now there's no need for the money. And he says, Leis Landbar, we don't mind what you do with the money. You could give whatever you wanted to give to charity. There is no cap on the amount that you can give. Question 1, are you guys with me? That presents a tremendous problem with this Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says you give it to your heirs. The same Ramah says if you tell a person to do what's good with your money, you give it to the heirs. The Ramah says explicitly, when a person's dying on their deathbed, they can give as much as they want to charity, leis landbar. What happens? How do you resolve that Ramah with this? Number 1. Number 2, one of the reasons, this is what I've been told, I haven't actually seen it written inside, but the allocation of money in the Torah to sons is not because the Torah prefers boys over girls, but when the father dies, the Bechor of the family steps into the father's shoes and takes responsibility for the family. So he's given more resources to look after the family after the father's passed on. I haven't seen that written explicitly, but that's what I've told them. We're going to go with that svara. And the expectation is that he would care about his siblings and utilize the money fairly and equally amongst them. But nobody trusts that anymore. And it becomes the bane of tremendous machlokas in families, how the money gets allocated and why he got more than the other person, and the one who got more was supposed to follow his father's instructions. How to use it is not following those instructions anymore, and basically causes a complete destruction of the family structure if it's not done correctly. And if you had a family with 1 son and 5 daughters, and the son got everything with the expectation that he's going to look after his daughters, but he has a fight with it. It's a flimsy little world that we live in with not such big people. And for more than 400 or 500 years, the Chachamim advised people not to allocate their money according to the way the Torah did, and to include daughters in the will. And we're going to understand exactly why we understand, but we're going to actually understand what they did in order to do that. And then we're going to discuss Rav Moshe's shita about a person who has a child that has totally irreverent to the parents, brings up their children against God, how he wanted to deal with that. Those are the 3 points we're going to discuss today. So first of all, Rav Moshe says, how can a person give their money to charity? That goes against the Shulchan Aruch, that your money should go to the heirs and you shouldn't move it to others. Unbelievable, Rav Moshe, a trivia Rav Moshe. He says as follows, he says that the charity that a person gives is for your benefit. It's going to save you from Gehenna. For those people who've done no aveiros, it's going to get you the most unbelievable olam haba. And always, your money, the priority destination for your money always is you first. Second is your heirs after you. But you always precede your heirs for your own money, which very much in line with what we've learned up until now. And therefore he says the choice of giving to charity or giving to your children is not a choice about distributing money to others. This is money how you want to spend the money for yourself. That's going to change your olam haba forever. You're entitled to do with that whatever you want. It's yours to do with. and that's not considered moving inheritance away from rightful heirs. That's spending the money in my lifetime the way that I wanted to spend it. That you're entitled to do. Again, everybody puts a condition on this, that even if you're doing this very noble act of giving your money to charity when you die, a person who leaves their children out of their will and gives it all to charity is very distasteful. The Chochmas Adam says it's just not the right thing to do. Rav Moshe says it. And they all say that you should leave a significant amount for your own heirs, even if you wanted to give charity. Which is an amazing thing to do in your will, but you should leave a significant amount of money in your will for your children, and then afterwards you can look after charities. I want to say a little bit more on this point. Rav Moshe said, I think he wrote the Tshuva in 1964, 1965, he said a choshev amount is $1,000, which according to CPI is about $10,000 or $12,000 in US terms today. So let's call it 200,000 Rand. He said if you leave each of your heirs, your children, 200,000 Rand, and the rest you gave to charity, no one would have any questions on that. That would be a beautiful, magnificent will. Okay? We did learn together. I told you I spoke to Rav Moshe Sternbuch about this, and he said he shouldn't give more than 20% of your will to charity. It shocked me because I hadn't seen it written anywhere. Everybody says a third, a half, as much as you want. No one says 20%, but I've thought also long and hard about what he said, and I really feel like for me that sits the best. The money you give to charity after you die, it's lovely, but you should have given it while you were alive. After you're dead, I don't know how much of that charity is going to actually be used well, put to good use, or it's going to be siphoned off by the next CEO of that organization who comes in 2 years after you're dead and has none of your values, and you're just basically trusting somebody else to deploy your money for charitable purposes, whether it does or not. You put it in a trust, the trustees will take it. I don't really have much hope and belief that the money you leave after you die is actually going to achieve all the dreams that you had for it. And if you have dreams for it, give it away while you're alive. And if you fail to do that while you're alive, then leave it for your children and let them, hopefully they've got the next best shot at utilizing the resources that you failed to deploy in a way which is in line with your family values. It's just my own advice. You can do whatever you want. The Shulchan Aruch gives you blasé, basically. Leave a choshev amount for your children. You can give it all to charity. You can do what you want. Will it actually achieve its aims? I very much have doubts over that. Okay. The next point is Rav Moshe says about a child that's let's just say wayward, that you don't want to leave money for that child. They are, not because of a personal dispute, he says they are educating their children to go against God. They have no interest in keeping Torah and mitzvahs, and you don't want to put resources into that child's hands. So it's an unbelievable tshuva. I'll tell you what he says and then what later poskim say on that. But he said that if a person is not keeping Torah and mitzvahs, and they are educating their children against Torah and mitzvahs, the chances of them producing children who are going to be shomer Torah and mitzvahs is next to naught. And therefore, he says you can, the Gemara actually says the reason why you can't move Yerusha from one heir to another, you must give it where it's supposed to go, because the Gemara says you never know what's going to happen to their children. Maybe the child's not good, but their grandchild might be unbelievable. He says the chances are now so slim that would happen. He actually, he allowed a person to move inheritance to a child who's going away from the ways of Hashem and to put it into another child's hand. The poskim right after that, Gary's not happy with that, but this is Rav Moshe's big. It's hard.
But I'm just saying it's practically not what you see, and you see, like I'm saying, a lot.
So they also, that's what they were. So what?
From grandparents.
Good.
And stuff.
So they say it's written in 1965, and they say Rav Moshe never experienced South Africa through the Tshuva movement in South Africa, but they just said that he didn't experience, it just never happened. If you went off the derech, you went off the derech. That's just the way life was. But he never saw this renaissance of tshuva, that there were these totally secular families who were bringing their kids up in totally the wrong way, and there was this awakening from their children, all sitting here in the shir, to come back to Torah mitzvahs. He says you see it all the time now, that actually you'd never know where the next Maggid Shir in the mirror is going to come from, where the next God Lador is going to, you just don't know. the Baalei Tshuva coming from all different sorts of families, and therefore the later poskim are against a person changing their will to exclude a child who currently is not keeping Torah and mitzvahs. So again, there's a bit of room and flexibility there. I asked of Moshe on this as well, Rav Sternberg, and he said that you can put a t'nai in your will to say that you're going to give money to the child on condition that they keep Torah and mitzvahs. So it's always available for them, or if their children keep Torah and mitzvahs, and you're not denying them, but you're not putting in their hands to live a life which is going against the Torah. If any time they or their children change, the money will become available to them. If you want to do that, you can. There's flexibility. Whatever you do works. The question is if you actually want to get involved in that and control your family from the grave. Certainly, the Shulchan Aruch says that you shouldn't move. You should not. The basics is that you give it and you leave it in Hashem's hands. If he doesn't want that person to have the money, he'll make sure they lose it. And if he does want them to have it because they're going to have a righteous grandchild, he'll make sure that they'll keep it. And to go like that, I think, would also be fine. Now, you have to choose yourself, the way you would choose in your life. No. I once saw, while I was in Israel, I don't know if I told you this, I was in Koilon, and I remember reading an article in the paper that said that there was this woman, I can't remember now, it's so long ago, but she was like in the top 20 wealthiest people in the world, and she died. And the article said, such and such a person left her money to the dogs. And she did. She gave all her money to the SPCA or whatever. Okay. What a great laugh. Okay. Now, daughters. So the widely spread, accepted practice for 400-500 years, is brought down in the poskim, is that a person leaves not to leave the child, the oldest son, double, and to actually split a person's estate equally amongst your children, and in circumstances, this again, no one said this is not brought down. I'm just saying, but if you want to include your wife, inclusion of the wife as well, would we need this? And what was created was a document called the Shtar Chatzi Bechor, most places called. It means you reduce the portion of the Bechor to half, so he gets his normal portion. And what that letter does, it's a debt. Basically what you do, Rav Moshe writes also in his tshuva, that you write a letter of debt from your estate to your daughters, owing them. So he says you should pick an amount which is 3 or 4 times whatever you would dream your estate's ever going to get to. Let's just say this. You write there's a simple form of the letter, you can get it from the Beis Din, but I'll just explain to you what it says. It basically says, I willfully indebt my estate to my daughter to pay her after my death a debt of $1 billion. Alternatively, the rightful Torah heirs of my inheritance, instead of paying that debt, can follow my list of wishes of how I would like my assets to be divided and will be exempted from the debt. And then you split your assets equally amongst your 4 children, a quarter, a quarter, a quarter. And if the children are happy to follow your instructions and give a quarter, a quarter, a quarter, the debt doesn't exist. And if not, well, then they owe $1 billion to your daughter, and afterwards they can take their double portion as a firstborn, whatever's left after that. But it's a perfectly halachic method of actually removing all the assets from your estate theoretically and moving it out to your daughter in that debt, which never happens because the amount's insurmountable for the estate, but it forces the heirs to willfully give the money out in fair proportions to all the people that you wanted it to go to. That would then give to your daughters and equal to your sons. If you wanted to include your wife into that, to allocate to your wife, you could then allocate as you wished with the will. And that's the encouraged and done practice. A person has a regular will that you'll have put together, and then in that will you'll say that the first debt and will needs to fulfill the shtar chatzi bechor, the instructions and the debt created or instructions created by that document, and you attach that to your will. And then halachically, you're not moving assets around at all. It's the free will of the heirs to make sure that the money goes to the places that you want it to go to. Facing death is not an easy thing for a person to do. I haven't seen this inside, but when I did, people told me that person gets blessed with long life when you look after your will properly whilst you're alive, and actually make sure that your family is taken care of. It's the thing which can make or break a family. And if you leave it without a will or in a mess or unthought of, it's going to create terrible ripple effects afterwards. And for myself, my father-in-law passed away, and I had no idea about his financial affairs at all. His son lived in Israel, and I was left with my other brother-in-law to wind up the estate. And I remember going through Shiva and thinking, "Oh, what's going to be here? I don't know." He wasn't interested in presented interest in financial things at all. So I just thought things are going to be all over the show. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. And it was the greatest gift that a person could leave his family. It was so organized. He had an executor. He had a will, sat with the best friend of him, knew exactly what to do. The guy on the third day of Shiva phoned us and said, "Don't worry, father-in-law's got a clear will. I know exactly where the assets are. I know exactly how he wants it to be split up." And it was, it's painful dealing with the admin, but there was no machlokas, there was total clarity and move forward. And I thought to myself, God forbid, if I would die tomorrow, my family would be in the worst sorrows. They know nothing. I've written nothing. I've got no will. I've got no instructions. It's going to be an absolute disaster. And I actually got onto it. It's been a while since I've re-looked at it, and it's something that you need to re-look at all the time, and things change and circumstances change. But it's exceptionally responsible thing to do, and it's what will make sure that a person's passing in this world is one which brings peace to the family, stability to the family, and clarity to the family. Exactly what to do. I'll just end with just a passing thought, having just explored it, and that is, I think the right way to set up your will is the way we've discussed now, having the shtar chatzi bechor and allocating fairly amongst all your siblings, and including your wife, because who knows if your children will look after your wife also, and how much. All these things are hard questions to calculate, but I definitely think they should be included. But the way the Torah had envisioned setting it up, it's actually so beautiful and actually so simple and right and correct, how it promotes life after you've left here. It's quite unbelievable, and promotes people getting on with their life and not depending on, just quite amazing. Incredible wisdom in that. And which, unfortunately, today there's not much of that left in us, in integrity to actually carry that out. So we're left with a bit of a chamos, I'd say, because now we have to manufacture these things ourselves, how we think is going to be fair, what's going to be received well by the family, actually what's going to look after them the best. But it's a sugya everybody needs to face, look into, take responsibility for, and set your family up. Please God, it should be only in 120 years' time, but they should be looked after. Okay.